CavutoTV.com.
I am sorry that they are finding themselves in this situation based on assurances they got from me.
So he's sorry now, but apparently that does not mean he's taking anything back now, or despite the urging of nervous Democrats, even slowing the disastrous health care rollout now. He's fixing it on the fly. Tonight, a look at how that's creating an even bigger fly-by-night fix. Welcome, everybody. I'm Neil Cavuto, and here's the good news. At least the president has some top techies tinkering with his healthcare website. Now the bad news. They're finding out it is worse than they thought, and are finding out that John McAfee was right when he told me on this very show, and I quote, "This is a hacker's wet dream." His words, not mine. This plan's security nightmare, now yours, now all of ours. So many bugs, so many problems, so many constant frozen screens, so little time. Some of these geeks urging the president, just give this thing a heave-ho and start from scratch. Scratch that because the president is doubling down and trying a live reboot. Why do I have the feeling it's all of us who are going to get kicked in the... Now, I don't know how that tech to save it. But I did find a pretty damn good tech person who has some great ideas. Teresa Payton was the White House Chief Information Officer under President Bush and is responsible for the one thing out of Pennsylvania Avenue that has stood the technological test of time, whitehouse.gov. Improving it was her baby. To Teresa now with some ideas on how the president might still be able to salvage this baby. You know, Teresa, knowing what you did and knowing what they've got to do, I know you have some ideas, but this is a major, major leap here. But go ahead, offer advice. What do they do?
Well, first of all, my heart goes out to the tech team because they're probably working 24/7 to fix this. And they probably have a lot of pride in developing a good product for the American people. I did give a bit of advice in the op-ed piece that I wrote for USA Today. And the first place I'd start is I'd get that guilt well plan out, and I'd meet with American companies like Disney, Amazon, FedEx, and I'd say, does this get well plan make sense to you? Is this where you would prioritize the fixes? And I'd get that outside advice.
What if they're not doing that now? Because you think about it, Teresa, that would have been nice to do before any of this. Obviously they didn't, but that's fine. Now this is about catch up here. But what if those guys then were to say, all right, this is more problematic than we thought, and we're hearing from a lot of techies that that's what they're encountering. What do you think?
Well, sometimes I've come in behind systems that seemed impossible to fix. And the first thing you have to do is that triage plan, stabilize the system, and then at some point make that tough decision. Is the system ever going to be working the way we want it to be, or do we need to actually build something new? But the key right now is we have to get this right. So triage, stabilize, and then make some of those decisions later.
Yeah, but you also have to know traffic patterns, right? I think you were writing about how in President Bush's case, after he met with a head of state or a speech or something, the demand and the traffic would rise exponentially. Now, I don't know the rollout and how traffic builds depending on the time of day. Obviously, an Amazon could tell you that, and eBay could tell you that. But how important is that gauging traffic demand when people want to get onto a site?
It's critically important, and I would expect right now they should have hour-by-hour reports that tell them when the peak times are. Also, when customers are getting stuck, bumped off the system, hitting errors, that should all be very apparent in the production reports, and they should be using that to guide the fixes, and also warning people about the peak times and when to stay away from the site for the best customer experience.
Obviously, a lot of times people get on there, they just see a screen that says, you know, keep trying. I'm just trivializing it here. But an issue that comes to mind, Teresa, is at what point do you realize the system simply can't handle the traffic, whether you need more servers, whether you need something bigger, whether you need, I don't know, a bunch of mainframes or whatever. At what point is there that moment where you say, what we've got isn't suitable and we have to start from scratch?
I think once you lay out the triage plan, you turn and you look at the IT team and you say, is this fixable? And you ask their opinion, because they're the ones who are going to know whether or not they can put more Band-Aids on it and make it work, or if really the Band-Aid's not going to stop the hemorrhaging. And so once they get through this triage plan, I would look at the IT team, I'd look at the security team, and I'd say, What do you think? Does this have a shelf life of a year, 2 years, or do we need to do something different?
You know, you mentioned, and not that you were responsible for this, but President Bush had a disastrous rollout of his own with the Medicare prescription drug benefit plan that was, many argue, poorly conceived. It really wasn't paid for, and just the rollout to inform people was sloppy. But eventually, they did get it down, and people were able to take advantage of it. And while critics are saying it costs a lot more than the president said at the time, there are those who say that at least getting it rolled out and the information how you sign up for it rolled out, it got there. It took years, but it got there. Do you think the same will be the case here, albeit on a much larger scale?
You know, we have a lot of unanswered questions still, so I'm not sure. But one thing I'm not a big fan of when it comes to systems rollouts is these sort of big bang approaches. This, in 3 years, we're going to get a system. I think they need to sort of double back and say any features and functionality, once we get the system well, we deliver them in 30 to 90-day increments. And that way you learn a lot about the customer experience.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so I think we need to take it on in much smaller chunks instead of very complex, big, long deliverables.
See, they should have done what I did with my parents, Teresa, when I was a kid. I prepared them for straight Fs on my report card. So if they saw a couple of Ds and Cs, they thought I was Mensa material. But obviously they didn't hearken my advice here, but that's neither here nor there. Teresa, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
All right, switching gears here. Who says that switching the lights off in Washington would cut the economic recovery right at the pass? It did not